Hello, it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to you again today about the City RAPTOR call for proposals. And specifically today, we're going to talk about defining the niche city challenges. Okay, this is one of the main topics and is a prerequisite to be able to bid. So we're going to guide you through this today, give you a reference for it, and that will help you think through the individual questions that you want to put to your local hubs in ILO or in discussion with us. So I'll be presenting today with Taylor Sawyer, and I'll be going through the basics, and then Taylor's going to help out by giving you examples of what was done in the pilot. Very specific, very detailed, and who won. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide. So to remind you of the call, it's rapid applications for transport. This is a model that was developed in 2021, and we are now moving forward with a program called for RAPTOR. It's about agile innovation with a focus on niche city mobility challenges and making sure that cities feel that they're in charge of their innovation program and that they're not dependent on universities, academics, or large industrial partners to tell them what they should be doing. This is the first call for proposals for RAPTOR after the pilot, so it's a select group and it is restricted, and it's one of the few restricted calls we'll be able to make. Cities should be applying to run their own RAPTOR within their own cities, and that's important. We see that the cities being the drivers of this, and primarily the main bidders and lead applicants should be cities. This is an opportunity to co-develop, test solutions, but with power within the hands of the city departments, transport authorities, etc. Maximum duration is going to be for 8 months, and there's going to be 3 awarded consortia, and each award consortia can give out prizes for 3 niche solutions. Importantly, I said a word there that's incorrect. I said prize. It's not. It's going to be a grant. We'll discuss that. Okay. But importantly, the information sessions on the niche city challenges, we already defined the overall call, and you'll be able to find it on the YouTube. But we've also got the question and answer sessions, which we'll be doing throughout January. And you'll be able to tune in there live, ask questions on that, and also talk to your hubs. Okay, so next slide. We're going to be really honest with you. We've put defining a niche city challenge right up front as key in this call. We had learning from the pilot. It took us almost 4.5 months to come up with the right city challenges, the right understanding, to be able to actually move towards a minimum viable product. So the learnings that we had are the following, and this is why you'll see this in the call. If you have a niche challenge, it has to be a very specific issue you're trying to address. It has to have a specific location in the city where you'd want to address that issue. A defined geographic area. It has to have an owner, someone within the city authority that owns the problem and is responsible to try and fix it. So there's vested interest. There has to be a needs base. What would the value of the city be if this was to be addressed? How would the political agenda, how would the health agenda, the mobility agenda, the energy agenda, the greenhouse gas be addressed? What would the benefits be? And those needs need to be clear. Importantly, to be able to make the minimum viable product happen, you need to own the assets. So if you're not in charge of the streetlights there, if you're not in charge of putting up even temporary road signs, if you're not in charge of rerouting and putting planters there, if you're not in charge of the assets, either hardware, physical environment, infrastructure, or it could be digital, you can't really run a minimum viable product and test it. So you really need to make sure, do you own the necessary environment to be able to test? And importantly, you may also need to ask permissions. Of course, for a minimum viable product, you might have to talk to the transport authority in the city, you may have to talk to the police, you may have to let neighbours know. So making sure that the permissions are dealt with. All of these elements are necessary to define a proper niche challenge that people can respond to. So keep in mind, teams, startup, SMEs can apply. You'll be working on this, running your competition, and they'll have about 6 months to do the minimum viable product. and they must have a test of that minimal viable product in the defined location that you identify to see how valid it is. So the whole point is that we're doing agile acceleration, and we think this is a wonderful chance for us to move ahead. So if you do not have 3 niche city challenges defined, you cannot submit to this call. Okay, so there's a level of work necessary before you commit to this submission process. Okay, next slide. We're going to give you some general examples. Okay, so we're saying general because it does need to be general. You can't come in and want a specific solution that you already have decided what you want. If you have a specific solution you want, then you should be going to procurement and tendering. Okay, so this is a problem, a niche challenge you don't know, that could have 5 or 6 different ways to address it, and you're asking the best brains in Europe to come up with an answer. So it's general. So for example, you might want to increase passenger footfall and return rate on water mobility ferries. And we have lots of our cities with waterways, increasing attention to the use of waterways and their viability of mass transit. And that question is, how do you make it not just an excursion activity or in days that it's good weather, but how do you increase the return rate? What might need to be done there? Additionally, you might have transport hubs that have significant crime records where people don't feel safe at night or gender-based violence has occurred. And we think that that as an opportunity to look at what solutions could come to make those transport hubs significantly safer and comfortable and accessible for all. Importantly, we've also seen inconsiderate and dangerous use of e-micromobility caused serious problems across Europe and deaths. So this is an issue that some cities have came forward, looking at punitive measures, or is it nudge actions that they're going to do? Will they penalise the providers or take the concessions away from providers? It's a hot topic. So there could be any answers that could come to that. We could be looking for some solutions to dynamic curbside management. You've got a very busy marketplace or street that is both a thoroughfare and a commercial centre, and how you manage those competing demands for space, and you manage them according to the time of the day and the needs of the location. So you might be looking for an answer there. Another one could be a solution for restricted community mobility collectives. For example, we have had the shared economy developing, and many people have talked about shared micro-mobility, shared car access, etc., shared cargo bikes. But what we're seeing is that lots of people are looking for a sense of identity and community ownership of a defined asset within a defined group, because people tend to behave better if they know that their neighbour 4 houses down the street will be using that car later in the afternoon. They look after the asset, they have a sense of self-identification. So this might be an idea to look up at shared mobility, but looking at shared mobility through the eyes of a community action. Then we've got unsightly, dangerous, unused urban lots. We do also address issues such as public ground. So we've seen ideas coming forward for micro-greening forests, gardening solutions, and also community gardens that not just green the environment, help clean the air, but bring the community together to participate in the collective ownership of their own spaces. And also, as these unsightly, dangerous spaces are used, it makes the environment a healthier, better place for people to be. So these are general problems, and we want you to have general problems. And then when it comes to where you want to implement it, you would then have to know, this is the unsightly and dangerous unused lot that I want to test the solution on. This is the exact address. This is who owns the property. I have the permission of the local parks. The land is currently under the hands of a private developer who's given us 3 years guaranteed use of the land before he plans to develop it. And you need to know and have that detail. So it's a general issue, but your specific defined location is there. For example, the security of a transport hub. You may have a train station and it's in an area with high peripheral city environment where people are dependent on inclusion to get to their working areas, to get to their shopping areas, and everyone's having to use that because there's low car and personal mobility. So those train stations in the periphery need to be safe. So you might decide, I have identified 2 stations where I think we can improve the crime record and the safety and make it more accessible all throughout the day. And those are the 2 sites where I want to have my test and demo done. So general examples we're giving you, but it has the specific defined location. Okay. Now, to help you understand a little bit more, we ran the pilot. And in the pilot, you can see the website there, and you can click onto that. And we will give you some examples of what came forward and was developed in the pilot. I'll hand over now to Taylor Sawyer.
Thank you, Gareth. So here I have the 4 niche city challenges that were in the RAPTOR pilot. You can see that they each have kind of a general title and then a short description. This is the content that you'll see on the website if you go to the pilot website. I've also written here the number of applicants that we received for each of these, just to give you a sense of the popularity of each of these. And next, what I want to do is go through actually 3 of these a little bit more in depth to describe what the challenge was. And then I can also share with you who the winner of each of these challenges was, so that you can see the types of solutions that were submitted and who submitted them. So first, we're going to have a look at the challenge located in Brussels with tour and taxis. So the specific location for this challenge was the tour and taxis real estate development near the Brussels North train station. So they have the specific location. And then they listed a few objectives and then potential solutions. So their objectives that they wanted to see out of this challenge were better use of private mobility resources, reduction of on-surface use of public space, reduction of congestion, adaptive transport solution for end users, and to create a community feeling for users. So you can see here that there's a few different objectives, and the solution doesn't need to meet all of the objectives. It's just framing the idea of what they're trying to achieve. And they also have a few potential solutions that they've suggested. So the potential solutions listed here are restricted mobility cooperative frameworks, a software for end users, or maintenance, cleanliness, quality control systems, or digital panels for live information of available options. So as Gareth mentioned, you can't come with a specific solution that you want, but you can provide some examples of solutions that might address the challenge that you're looking at. So the winner of the challenge for the Brussels site in tour and taxis was an Italian startup called Volvero. And the solution that they submitted was a user-friendly app that allowed owners of both private vehicles and business vehicles to rent these out. And these could be cars, scooters, or bicycles, and those will be rented to users who need them in the tour and taxis site. And importantly, the KPI that is achieved by the solution submitted by this startup is a marketed product. Now, the next example we have is from Toulouse with the Toulouse Metropole, and the specific location that they chose was the neighborhood around the train station in the market district of Toulouse. So they had their specific location defined. Their objectives and their challenge were to work on reverse logistics and to make potentially to make better use of the waste in the area, because there's a lot of restaurants in this area. They were looking to also optimize the last mile delivery logistics, potentially to optimize the waste truck logistics, and also to have an adaptable solution for garbage collection. So these were the objectives for their challenge, and some of the potential solutions that they identified to address this were, for example, software for last mile solutions and waste producers, specifically the restaurants, or a software for the city administration to use or the waste management administration to use. They also suggested a smart container with the capacity to do micro composting, or containers that could generate energy. And the solution that won this specific challenge was a French startup. And what they submitted was a holistic cooperative supply chain involving local agri-food players, farmers, refillable container solutions, etc. So their solution actually was able to connect to a number of the different proposed solutions for the challenge. And you can see here the two KPIs that they achieved with this solution are marketed product as well as a startup created from /for innovation. Our final example is from Cunit. And Cunit is a small town. So they specified Cunit, but especially the main thoroughfares in the city is what they wanted to focus on. And their objective for their challenge was to optimize data collection, analysis, and the maintenance of their road elements. And the potential solutions they suggested were a visual recognition system with cameras installed in the local police car fleet, the integration with the current inventory GIS system to present data more easily, or to have a support system in road maintenance, decision-making. And the winner for this challenge was a Spanish SME. And what they proposed was an urban mobility AI monitoring system that's able to collect, analyze, and visualize a large amount of data related to the environmental situations. And the KPI that came out of this was a marketed solution. So those are the three examples we wanted to highlight from the current RAPTOR. Gareth, is there anything from these examples that you want to highlight?
Definitely. I mean, I think what was interesting is that we did have some fabulous applicants who had defined a solution and came and said, we could answer this, this is how much it is, and we'll install it. And in some of these cases, our city partners decided we don't want to buy something, we want to have an influence over how this product goes. So in some of these cases, the solution was maybe 60, 70, 80% done, or they had a complete solution, but the requirements of the city would mean they'd have to amend their product. And these companies were amenable to amend and adapt to the specific needs. So some people who came along with great marketing presentations, perfect product pitch, when it got to the actual hearing, they didn't win because they were not working with the city to adapt to their issues. And that was one big element. So think about that. You want someone that works with the city, that's your partner, that will look at something and say, that's not what we're looking for in this 4 months. Let's revisit the visualization tool, or if you're having problems with the data, they'll come up with a way to help you find a way to clean up that data so that you can use it properly. So you want a relationship. So don't think of this as buying a product, okay? It's a project, okay? So that's one of the big things that came out. And also you'll see each city had a defined specific location, okay? They knew what they would hope to achieve. They didn't know how they were going to do it. And we're asking the cities to have a little bit of faith, define the product, and let people see your problem, expose your problem, so that people who are clever and thinking about different technologies can put them together. So there's a little bit of risk, and I think that's a wonderful thing that we found. Okay. And apart from that, Taylor, I think you can agree it's a fun process to be very close to the innovation and see all these great, clever people with amazing ideas. And some of the ideas were really good and we weren't able to fund them because we could only fund one per city at the time. So there's lots of opportunities to develop. Okay. Now, the next slide. I have to remind you, if you do not have 3 niche challenges in your city identified with the ownership, the location, the asset control, the permissions, you can't bid. This is restrictive and it's intentional, okay? So this will take time. This will be the most consuming part of your application and preparation, and it'll take energy, okay? But good niche challenges get great results. Importantly, you're going to have to agree across party. So for example, in Cunit, while the mayor's office were there, they were phoning up and getting the guy from the IT department to come down to the meeting. And then when they realized that the police cars were a great way to be able to have people patrolling with the system, then they called the man from the police department and he came down and sat in the room. And it's that wonderful ability to bring people together that is what we're looking for. So please don't be generic. If you provide a very generic issue without any examples of what you might look, you just get, many incoming bids that aren't specific for you or your city. It's people with products who just want to sell. If you're really generic and don't give specific examples of what you're trying to achieve and the outcomes, you're just going to get lots of nonsense, and you'll have to read with us through those. So think about being, it's great details of where, what you want to achieve and how to do it, and then you get really specific answers, which are good for you. We don't want you to give us a citywide problem. We've had a few instances where people gave us a massive citywide issue and wanted us to find an issue, a solution to it. And we said, no, in the agile model we work in a defined area with specific outcomes, with a test time. And once it works, then we look at building it out. But we're not going to try and solve a problem with 50,000 support money for a city of 2 million. That's not how it works. So it's a different agile way of thinking. Just switch your mind. Importantly, as we said, select the agile, responsive, pliable solution. Do not go with a perfect product, especially because their marketing presentations, their sales capacities are fabulous for some of the companies, and total respect to them. But you want someone that works with your city. So think about that when you're actually doing your evaluations. We want you as a city to develop that tight relationship with innovators. You will influence their solution, and their thinking influence us. Okay, so that's that relationship, that whole KTI and knowledge transfer. The behaviors, the knowledge that we're trying to get working. We definitely want to change how we think about innovation. It's not all 1.2 million projects or 3 million projects over 2 years. You can innovate quite fast with people who've done work. And we do expect some of the minimum viable products may fail, but some of the larger 3 million products fail. So come on, it's a different way. It complements our large projects. So think about it as we move ahead. It definitely responds to the critique, and we have the cities now in charge. You are at the center of this innovation. You will shape how these people respond to your needs, and you'll be able to get what you want. It's a bit of a responsibility. You're not outsourcing it to an academic or a large industrial partner. The city really starts to make the calls there. So it's something to enjoy, and hopefully you'll be animated by it. Once we have the minimum viable product working and we've tested it, then we could scale only once the evidence is shown that it works in the area and that you get the output you want. Okay, so it's important to think about that, and as you talk with your own city leaders, helping them understand the plan and how it works is going to be key. So,
and Gareth, some may be curious, do these 3 niche city challenges need to be in the same city, or can they be the same as the RAPTOR pilot in 3 completely different cities, or a mix?
Well, we want one city to lead. So we expect the majority will be one city and having the 3 different issues within their own city. However, if a city is a lead and they decide that one of the problems is going to be a periphery city or a partner city, they work closely, that's not a problem, as long as we make sure that there is a city that leads as the lead applicant, or if they have a university doing some of the work, the accountable named person is the city. So we might have an instance where the city is the lead applicant, but the bulk of the funding and operational work might be through a university accelerator. We don't mind, but the person who talks to us and it makes the city challenges should be the city. Yeah.
Great, thanks. I think this brings us to the end of our presentation today.
So just remember, service desk, EIT, urbanmobility.eu, and ensure you make the title RAPTOR call to get your questions answered. Remember, we have the next set of discussions we'll be having will be live feed discussions, specifically on the financial sustainability mechanism, that very thorny and difficult question that we know that our non-profits and some of the organizations and cities can't legally do anything on that. So we'll be working closely with you on that. And that's why we're going to do a detailed Q&A. I'll be there. We'll have people from the local hubs there, and also the business creation team will be there to answer your questions. Okay. And then the final one we're going to be doing is on risks. You do know that we're going to try and save one of the RAPTOR cities for a city in one of our risk countries. And so we'll have a special session on that. Anyone from Europe can attend, but it's specifically targeted to the regional innovation system as per the EIT criteria. And so with that, we'll wish you a very, very good day. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.